Good evening. My name is Todd Fisher, and tonight I'll be discussing the phenomena of light pollution. And we can see my screen now, is that correct?
Yes.
Around 150 years ago, nighttime lighting was quite rudimentary. One of the many innovations that shaped our society and civilization is the incandescent bulb, invented in 1879 by Thomas Edison. The many benefits of electric lighting over the previous gas or natural flame sources were steady glow, no oxygen consumption, and you could orient the bulb in any fashion you wanted rather than just upwardly facing. This invention created a plethora of effects, both positive and negative. The increasing utilization of artificial lighting created situations where night actually became much brighter than it ever had before. This is commonly given the name light pollution. Three simple and straightforward definitions are provided here. Light present where it's not wanted, presence of an artificial light in the night environment, or excessive, misdirected, or obtrusive use of light. Here we see the Los Angeles skyline, very bright. Some of you may have been to Las Vegas. It's also very phenomenal when you come in and fly into at night. A bit more definition of light pollution. First, we have the unshielded lighting can produce a very hazardous glare, such as like headlights at night or walking into a dark room. In this case here, we see the gentleman here directly facing into this downwardly facing light. And there's both visibility, which is the lessened visibility, and there's discomfort, which is the pain associated with that. So glare is one. We see light trespass over here on the right. The light is going into someone's house. That can be from, say, a concert or sporting events where there's excessive light spillover. Again, unwanted light. Sky glow is a summation of many factors, both the glare and the trespass, and it's normally just thought of as upwardly reflected light we see here. How does it affect us as humans and our environment? Why does it matter? There's a plethora of effects. Both the animal kingdom and plant life have negative implications linked to artificial light, particularly with some studies on genetic effects. The core clock genes and cell cycle rhythms were actually linked to multiple cancer types. Some of the more severe effects were LED lighting and the associated blue light with the LEDs. The study area is called Tri-Cities, Washington. Up here in the inset map, we can see in the southeast part of Washington. It's at the junction of three rivers here. The Columbia River is about the fourth biggest in the country. Population's around 250,000, around 123 square miles. There's actually four cities. West Richland is included in this too. They do call it the Tri-Cities. There's a variety of factors that make it conducive for such a study. The climate's desert with only 9 inches of rain a year. So we have clear skies and seasonable temperatures even in winter. Actual daylight hours in the winter are abbreviated due to being northerly. It's at the 46th parallel. And nighttime sky comes earlier in the evening. Also, there's a variety of neighborhoods all the way from rural, residential, and commercial. It allows a variety of zoning attributes and provides a broad spectrum of illumination characteristics. Population is large enough to create a substantial database and small enough to allow easy geographical negotiation around the entire area. The next slide shows, again, you can see the rural areas out here on the outskirts. The metropolitan area is bounded by the black lines. The yellow dots are the random points that were generated. It was based on 1 per square mile, and then it was rounded to 150 data points to create a more robust sample size and account for potential inaccessible locations, an airport or a rural area or something like this, private property. Some technical details. The 4 metropolitan cities were chosen by attribute from the Washington State Cities feature class. They were then exported to a new feature class, creating a layer with the 4 city boundaries within it. The Washington State shapefile was clipped to include only streets within this 4 city boundary via the clip analysis tool. This created a collection of data points that were all on the roads and allowing easy access. They were also within close proximity of the streetlights, which we wanted to monitor. The ArcMap random point generator was run to create the 150 sample points located on existing roads, and the shapefile attribute table was exported via the table to Excel conversion tool and then imported to Google Maps. On the next slide, we'll see just a quick view of what Google Maps looks like. We had 9 collection days. You can see we started over here with gray, and then it went to gold, but it goes around the city in a loop. On all 9 days were included with the samples of 150 points. There was 2 main lamp styles involved. There was LEDs and the older incandescents, and of course there was none. We nominally chose 100 feet was the point of where we thought that wouldn't be considered any input to the light meter. And then zoning category was either commercial, residential, or rural. Levels of illumination were obtained via direct physical measurement of the artificial nighttime lighting with the unihedron light meter. It's a very sensitive instrument, and at each data location it took 10 sample points, which gave 1,500 raw data values, and then we averaged them down to the 150 data points. More importantly here, the Bortle scale was invented by John Bortle. We see the scale over here at the right. He first published an article in Sky and Telescope Journal in 2001, about 20 years ago. There was 9 levels of illumination values, and I consolidated those into 4 values. One important one here again is the 18 down here at the bottom, and that's considered a typical city sky. Again, referencing the 9 collection days, October, November, and December of last year. Start time was shortly after sunset. Each collection time was just over an hour. I wanted to specifically limit this and to maintain as little variation within the sampling criteria as possible. Each day was between 13 and 20 sample points. This overall slide here shows the total overall illumination, not based on lamp or zoning style. The average value was 17.75, again, just below this 18 of the city sky. The illumination values are ranged between not quite 12 and 19.6. You can see 8 of the points are notably brighter. The dark blue here, again, a lower value in the Bortle scale is brighter, so this 11 to 15 is seen with these 8 points that are dark blue scattered throughout the city. This slide shows the lamp style, compares no street lamp to incandescent to LED. The no lamp is the white, the incandescent or old style is the yellow lamp here, circles, and then the LED is the majority of the points are the blue circles. This breaks it down into each separate type of lamp. No lamp at the top, incandescent here, LED at the bottom. Again, LED was 2/3 of the total sample points. Further examination of this LED portion of the box and whisker plot shows 6 outliers here with a very wide range in the illumination data. Incandescent had a smaller range and a couple of outliers, while at the right we see the no lights had a much closer range and much darker plot as well. Zoning class, moving on to the type of zoning, we see commercial industrial as the gray boxes, residential as the blue, and the rural is just 4 rural spots out here in the far left. Breaking this again into the 3 separate distinct categories, commercial at the top with 47 points, residential again had 2/3 of the values, and rural just had a few values. Statistically, looking at the results, we see commercial again has this broad range and only 3 outliers from the commercial zoning. Residential has 4 outliers with a narrower range and a little bit darker boxed values here, and the rural were very dark, magnitudes darker. In conclusion, there was 2/3 of the lamps were LEDs. There were 16 that had no lamps. The residential zoning also comprised 2/3 of the data locations, and the overall illumination was slightly less than what a city sky is considered in the Bortle scale at 17.75 megaarc seconds squared. Of the 8 brightest points, 4 were LED, 4 were incandescent, half and half. 6 were zoned in the commercial zones, and 2 were residential zones. Samples with the incandescent and LED bulbs, the lamp styles, showed quite similar illumination values. You can see here barely any difference, while the areas with no lighting present showed a much darker illumination range. The average commercial and residential ranges were close, and then again rural was much darker. Conclusions: light pollution does exist within the study area. The illumination values average less than the 18 of the typical city sky. 6 of the 8 were commercially zoned. 6 of the 8 brightest points were commercially zoned. And as far as the actual lamp styles, there's the 2 lamp styles in the metropolitan area, and the particular needs of a zoning environment dictates different constraints. Commercial shopping venues such as a car lot has safety concerns with the parking area, a need for advertising and visibility, economic concerns with the many hours of lighting operation present, while a residential area has needs based on home and lot size, possibly population density, or even geographical considerations. And also the residential zones typically have a well-spaced street lamp and very little input from any other sources besides the homes themselves. The age of the neighborhood is definitely a factor as well for lamp style. The cost to upgrade the older incandescent lamps to a newer LED technology is expensive. A newer neighborhood has the option of just choosing the LEDs for an initial installation. Most metropolitan zones may also have relevant legislative aspects, which would dictate the amount of illumination and possibly the type of lamp. All of these are contributors to the style of lamp chosen for a particular zone. These results are definitely tied to the project methodology. The random sampling locations were not constrained by the location itself or any ambient lighting present in the area. In some cases, the sampling locations were directly below street lighting, and this would, of course, result in brighter values regardless of the bulb type. And conversely, some of the random collection points included industrial areas consisting of multiple bulbs, while others a vacant lot with only a few light sources. In conclusion, much like a magnifying lens, this study provides a big picture overview, allowing additional, more comprehensive studies to narrow in on these conclusions. It's anticipated that further data would provide greater information, allowing a more definitive conclusion. A self-imposed geographical limitation delineated the collection points only onto metropolitan streets, and this could be optionally expanded to include a more representative sample population. Further studies may choose later collection times, corresponding to anticipated lower illumination patterns. Another future study could also include a more comprehensive analysis of just the commercial zones, with emphasis on variances within those brighter areas. Lastly, the darker areas could be modeled for the causative underlying factors creating their darker environments. That's all that I have for my presentation tonight. I thank all of you very much for listening.